Okay, right now, Arvind Subramanian, the Finance Minister's Chief Economic Advisor, is addressing the press. Let's go straight across and listen into what he has to say about the economic survey that has been shortly tabled.
As usual, please follow the points of order. There are placards kept in front of you. Please raise them. I will call them one by one. And also request you to keep your mobiles on a switch off or a silent mode. An announcement also. After this conference, there is another press conference by the Revenue Secretary, Dr. Hasmukh Adiaji, and Chairman CBDT, Mr. Sushil Chandraji. He will also make a very brief presentation. Now, over to the Chief Economic Advisor.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Yeah. So, okay. Should we dim the lights, please, so that people can see the screen?
No, sir, no. Cameras.
So, do we privilege the TV cameras or the people here? Anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming, for all of you here, all of you watching on TV, and hopefully many of you watching on Facebook as well, where this is, I'm told, live. Mr. Malik, it's live on Facebook. Correct? Yeah? On the Ministry of Finance webpage, it's live there too. This is obviously a very important day for all of us in the economic division, and hopefully it's a very important day for all of you as well, because it is a really massive document we've produced this year. And I just want to remind you that this is just the first installment. So this beast has come in the first installment. It's going to be as big in its second installment sometime during the summer. Such a document would just not be possible, of course, without contributions from scores, I would say even hundreds of people this time. If you look at the list of acknowledgements, I hope we haven't excluded anyone, but there have been people from all over the world, private sector, public sector, academia, within India, all over India who've contributed to this. And I really do want to thank them on behalf of the economic division. Of course, this is the collective product of the staff of the economic division who deserve a lot of gratitude and congratulations. In particular, I want to thank the coordination unit headed by Archana Mathur, and also especially to Mr. Abdul Karim and Anthony Syriac for shepherding the process through the actual physical publication. I want to thank all the members of the Office of CEA who worked very, very hard for a very long time to produce this. There are two people in particular I wish to thank without saying that other people are not important. Everyone's been very important. All chief economic advisors need their own chief economic advisor, and mine is Josh Feldman, and who has really expanded the bandwidth of the division, the Office of CEA, and my own bandwidth. So heartful thanks to Josh. And my last but not least is I think I have to thank my fantastic boss. I call him boss, but he's actually the finance minister of the country. He has not only provided support and space to allow this to happen, but I think he will also have to be a shield for me when the reactions come in from all of you today and tomorrow. None of this, it goes without saying that none of this would be possible without the Honourable Finance Minister, and we're all deeply, deeply indebted to him for all the encouragement, support and guidance that he's provided. It's a long document. The presentation is going to be a little bit long. I beg your patience, your attention. I hope you'll be rewarded. If I see any of you, your heads dropping, I will start moving quickly. First of all, I want to begin by saying, what should be the aspiration for an economic survey? A lot of stuff has recently been written on the economic survey. What should it be about? And here I can do no better than quote one of the greatest economists of all time, John Maynard Keynes, who said, he said this about economists, but I think it's true about any good survey as well, that it must try and do everything. It must draw upon mathematics, history, philosophy. It must study the present and the past. And very importantly, it must be purposeful and objective, and its authors must be as aloof and incorruptible as artists, yet, like grubby politicians. So we have to try and do everything. And Amitabh Bachchan, I think, says this more colorfully, I think, when he says, "Isme drama hona chahiye, tragedy hona chahiye, comedy hona chahiye, sab kuch hona chahiye." And that's what the survey, I think, tries to do. We've probably fallen short of these lofty standards, but that's what we've tried to do. And that must be the aspiration for all economic surveys. Okay, the structure of the survey, it comes in 4 parts. Just to tease the reader, there's a section called 8 Interesting Facts About India that you probably didn't know. So those who are, attention challenged, they can just go to that. But apart from that, there are 3 sections, what we call the perspective, which is a kind of big picture take on the economy, short term and medium term. Then what we call the proximate, all the pressing challenges in the short term, and then the persistent, all of the medium term challenges. Obviously, this is a forward-looking, ideas, analytical-based document. There will be, as I said, a review coming later in the summer. But I do want to emphasize that this is a government document, absolutely, but it also aims to provide objective analysis, and what Keynes said and what the finance minister has kind of provided the space for is to be both purposive but also dispassionate and objective. This is what we try and do. This has a lot of material, 14 chapters, a lot of it with medium-term issues as well. But today, given the constraints of time, I'm going to focus mostly on, what are some of the more pressing short-term issues. But I do hope that all of you, after, splashing headlines tomorrow, will go back and read, some of the other chapters as well. And there is a lot of food for thought here. So today's presentation, I'm going to go review developments. I'm going to talk to you about the near-term outlook, including the impact of demonetization, discuss the short-term challenges, and then conclude with some medium-term challenges as well. Okay, if you look back on the last year that's gone by, I would say that it's been characterized by robust macroeconomic stability. I'll explain how. There have also been a very impressive set of reform achievements. I will, just highlight them. And of course, you cannot ignore 2016 without focusing on what have been absolutely tumultuous external developments. The phrase we use in the survey is that these are developments forebodingly laden with darker possibilities. Darker possibilities of trade tensions, darker possibilities of retreat from globalization around the world, and of course, much more fundamental questioning about how countries should run their economies. And these are mostly happening in advanced economies, but they're going to have their repercussions on India as well. And chapter 1, the overview chapter, has some implications for India as well. Today, I'm going to focus more on the domestic. I think it's fair to say that there's been robust macroeconomic stability in the last 1 year. Headline CPI inflation has come down. If I can get a marker while I'm talking, that would be great. The current account deficit has come down from, it used to be 3.5%, 4% of GDP. It's now less than 0.5%. Reserves are at their all-time high. And I think it's important to emphasize on the external front that last year, 2016, we've survived 2 major shocks. One, the FCNR redemptions that people, now can forget because it went so smoothly. And second, also, the volatility from both the US elections and demonetization. I think externally we've weathered that very successfully. And of course, on the fiscal front, it's a story of steady fiscal consolidation and acquisition of acquiring credibility. So, and of course, if you look at FDI inflows, they're at a record high in the second quarter of last year. It was about 26 billion, all-time high, reflecting how investors perceived the Indian economy. I do want to emphasize here that macroeconomic stability is easy to overlook and become complacent about. but it is absolutely fundamental to anything and everything that any government wants to do and is able to do going forward in terms of meeting the long-run goals of growth, justice, and employment. Just to remind you, you kind of notice macroeconomic situation when you don't have it. And let us, just want to remind you how things felt in July, August 2013, when we did not have macroeconomic stability. We were close to crises, we were clubbed with the fragile five kind of basket case emerging economies, and everything was heading south, investors were fleeing, and today as we look back, we've put that considerable distance behind us, and it's easy to overlook that because now we're in a good situation, but we should never take this for granted because macroeconomic stability is the kind of base from which everything else follows. Now, of course, this is a chart on how GDP growth has behaved. You can see that real GDP growth has increased but stabilized. Nominal GDP growth declined last year and has come back up. And I would insist that especially at a time when the CPI and WPI were diverging so much this year and last year, at last it's caught up. Nominal GDP growth was an important indicator to monitor. Now, if a year ago, someone had stood in front of you and said that the government within the next 1 year would implement an absolutely landmark GST bill, would secure passage of the bankruptcy law, would codify the institutional arrangements in the form of a monetary policy committee, and would pass the Aadhaar bill, if someone had said that a year ago to you, you'd have probably greeted that with skepticism, quite rightly so. But yet, a year on, I think all these achievements have happened, and legislatively with near unanimous political support. So I think, again, it's something that we kind of tend to forget. We've had, the absolutely, transformational GST, which is going to have all kinds of positive impacts on investment, on tax compliance, on governance, on growth. And of course, it's an absolutely radical experiment in the governance of cooperative federalism, and we're already seeing the benefits from that. The finance minister and, of course, my good friend Hasmukhji were instrumental in doing this, but it's just an absolutely landmark achievement which we should recognize. In addition, FDI was liberalized. I think we've also had this UPI being implemented, which, because of the interoperability that it creates, is going to make JAM a reality because it's going to make M-Mobile an integral part of JAM. And of course, the government also had taken some important steps to promote the labor-intensive sectors like apparels and made-ups. Now, just as an aside, I would like you to go, see, despite all these achievements, it's very interesting that the ratings agencies have not reflected this. So there is a box in Chapter 1 where we show how maybe what kind of inconsistent standards the ratings agencies have. We call this poor standards. Because Standard & Poor's said last year that there's no way we can upgrade India because of its low GDP and fiscal deficit. But actually, if you look at how they have rated China and India, it's absolutely astonishingly inconsistent. China is about 6 grades above us on the ratings, AA minus, BBB minus for India. And yet, since 2008 onwards, 2 absolutely key indicators of risk have, in the case of the indicators being growth and credit growth, China's GDP growth has come down dramatically, its credit to GDP has risen dramatically, and everyone acknowledges that this is the single biggest risk to not just the Chinese economy, but to the world economy. India's indicators have moved in exactly the opposite directions, and yet, how did the ratings agencies behave? They upgraded China, and they did not, despite all these risky developments, they did not downgrade China, whereas in fact for India, the rating was maintained 6 notches below China. So it's an interesting thing about how, I think, reflection on how these, institutions work, but I think we should question them. But this is just, I think, for all of you to digest and have a little fun on. Now, I've spelt out all the achievements of the government and the economy in the last year. But as I said, we have to be objective about the economy. We have to provide objective analysis, because I think it's only honest and fair to recognize that despite all these, there is a kind of sense of anxiety, a sense of, maybe things not going as well as they should. And our sense is that it stems from two things. One, the impact of demonetization. And second, the way investment, credit, and jobs have been behaving, not as strong as they should be. And I think these are two very legitimate concerns. And so the economic survey takes them head on. Now, of course, I think the headline should also be that finally the CEA speaks on demonetization. I think there is an old saying that you should only speak when you can improve upon the silence. In this case, I would say you should only speak when you can improve upon the noise, the clamor, and the cacophony, which is what demonetization has been about. So we are going to speak on demonetization. So how should we think about demonetization? It is a radical currency, come governance, come social engineering measure aimed at permanently and punitively raising the costs of illicit and unaccounted transactions, what you call kala dhan or black money. I think at its core, that's what it's about. I mean, you can flesh it out in terms of counterfeit, this, that, and the other, but we're trying to kind of cull out the essence. I think it's also fair to say that the public debate on demonetization has raised three issues. One, the design and implementation of the scheme, and on this, the economic survey is not going to speak about this. I mean, it's in the past, and other people have commented on this. Second, on the costs and benefits, and third, on the broader implications for future economic policy. Now, I think everyone, now I'm going to talk about the costs and benefits. I think it's fair to say that there have been short-term costs which are real and significant. I think there has been hardship and inconvenience imposed, especially those in the informal sector. But there is also the potential for long-term benefits. And in the chapter 3, there's an elaborate discussion of what the potential long-term benefits can be. I think it is likely to increase financial system savings, because in equilibrium we expect that cash to GDP and cash deposits should decline. Corruption couldn't be expected to decline. Black money similarly. I think already you see the increase in digitalization of the economy. You can also see early evidence that real estate prices have come down. In the long run, all these measures should improve GDP and tax collection. And of course, a lot of this is also going to depend upon the follow-up actions that will be implemented after demonetization. And I will spell those out a little bit later.